Hey guys, it's Jay, here with another review video. Before the review begins, I'd like to ask if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and share with others. Without further ado, on to the vid. The episode begins with pirates frantically shooting in the direction of an open door, as one questions how they were found. A smoke cloud then erupts in front of them, and as they continue to shoot, a shield appears through the smoke, with one of them saying who they are shooting is like a tank. Tevin holds his ground, then blitzes past the pirates, taking two of them out at once. From the ground, the third shoots, but Tevin's rhino hide partially forms around his face, protecting him. He then winds up his arm and slams it down, ending the pirate. As he does so, he sighs, and thinks those men sentenced themselves to their own demise, and that he is not to blame for this, as they chose the wicked side. He then asks Lewis how it is over there, and as he turns around, Lewis is seen standing on a column of ash, with many pirates being held in his ash's grasp. A pirate off in the distance says, "Stupid support cameos, always got your damn arms folded, yeah? Try some lead in your skull." As we pan back to Lewis, we see his ash has stopped the bullet that was fired at him. The ash is then sent out, ending the pirate as well. Lewis makes his way to where Tevin is, who calls the pirates scum, and says they've been taking supplies from the neighboring towns to sustain their men. He then asks Lewis how many does he think handed over their meals willingly, and what does he think the pirates did to them. Lewis says despite their allegiance they had it coming, Tevin, feel nothing for them. He says this is only the second oil rig they've hit, and to think they took it over with such little noise, as it went undetected for weeks, and Tevin comedically responds that they're silent now. Inspector Brandon then walks on the main deck, as it is now secured. He says Lewis and Tevin did an excellent job, and that it looks like the main deck had 3 times the amount of footmen on board, and adds that they successfully cleared the lower levels, that there weren't nearly as many there. He says they knew they were coming after they cleared the first vessel, and still didn't stand a chance. He continues by saying there's still work to be done, but it must wait as he has bad news. They receive distress signals from central Trinidad, where Azam and Yukiko are currently located. An evacuation team is on its way, and they should be flying in. Hearing this, Lewis expresses great concern, and Brandon apologizes for not being able to guarantee their safety, and that he has no further details on their current status. Tevin tries to reassure Lewis by saying Yukiko will be alright, as Azam is with her, and that he'll protect her just fine. But Lewis screams out, and who will protect him? Brandon says to take his boat, as he already instructed his lieutenant to take one of them there immediately, and he assumes it will be Lewis. Lewis thanks him, but says he'll fly as it will be quicker. Brandon says very well, and he hopes that it's nothing serious. Lewis apologizes to Tevin, but he says Lewis is right, and to make sure they're both safe and to get back. Lewis says he leaves the safety of the Greyhounds to Tevin, and to not let his guard down, as he is out here alone now. The scene then switches to Yukiko after she performed her last attack, wondering if she finished the giant. As she looks at the wound she caused, she sees the flame-like orb inside the giant, and questions what it is, and if it is the reason the giant can regenerate. She says he's a monster from a story, and he doesn't have a soul, so that must be what keeps him going in place of one. She says he may not be real, but he has a heart to protect like she does. He then winds up for a punch, but Yukiko dodges to the left as she slashes with both her swords. She then looks and freezes his foot, keeping him in place so she can successfully slash at him again. She taps her sword on the ground, sending ice out and at the giant's feet. She apologizes as she cannot allow him to go on, and in some weird way she must thank him, for the first man she will kill will only be a dream. Switching to Azam, we see him slash at the beast with his weapon. The beast punches the ground, but Azam is already on his back, and he has the neck of one of the riders chained up while he stabs the other. The beast raises his hand and slams down, crushing both of the riders. The beast sheds tears and looks towards Azam, but he says not to look at him as the beast is the one who did it. He then jumps in the air, hitting the beast in the head at the same time. While in the air, he tells it not to worry as he'll be joining them soon. He then maneuvers the weapon in a way that allows him to stand on the bigger blade, and as the beast looks up, Azam strikes like a bolt of lightning. This severs the flame-like orb and causes blood to rain down on Azam. Ephialtes says, "Am I supposed to be impressed? Of course you figured out you needed to hit its core. You think as fast as you move. What actually impresses me is that you haven't fallen asleep yet. My chi is everywhere, and it has a particular side effect. Well done, you killed a nightmare. Guess that makes you a bigger one, Azam." He continues by saying, "You ruined my story, boy. That makes me want to carve you up. I pre-wrote this chapter many years ago. There are only a few things that can counter me, and a haste talent such as yours is one. I have several chapters written to handle situations such as this. You're very unlucky to experience one. You know the gibberish the god tier preaches? Consider your weakness and overcome it? Well, I followed suit." He puts his hands together, and as the paper slowly unravels, a core forms out of it. It then moves to his side, as he says it was written for Azam. An explosion goes off as Azam looks towards him, and when the smoke clears, a new nightmare known as Nightmaric Skies, Azam's Bane, is revealed. Now on to the highlights. So all the cameos we see in the episode have something that can be noted about them, so let's look at them one by one, starting with Tevin. Now, Tevin at the start of the episode is seen using his shield and hammer, which should be made from the same material that we see on his hide. This material is more than likely keratin, which is a fibrous protein that is the primary structural component of skin, hair, and nails, and it provides support and protection in your body. Rhino horns are also primarily composed of keratin, so of course Tevin's rhino hide naturally produces this protein as well. With training, Tevin is now able to manipulate the keratin his hide produces. We know this is true as he is using the same hammer we saw in episode 113, and he is using the shield as well, but he is seemingly using the shield without the hide being manifested on his arm, as if you look closely at this panel, there is no gray pigment that would imply he is using his hide. But in a technical sense, he is still using the rhino hide, as the keratin weapons come from that hide, and not his others. Tevin is also using more of his base strength, along with more partial hide usage. This is also something he displayed in 113, as he only covers his arms in his hide, along with using the shields on top of them. This should help conserve a lot more of his chi, as he doesn't have to waste it on forming the full hide when it's not needed. The hide is also adaptable and can increase its durability, but will also grow heavier. So with only partial uses, Tevin eliminates that for the most part. The addition of the shields also aids in this. The hide itself can also manifest faster too, which is a testament to Tevin's ability to react, as when Tevin gets shot at while he's looking in a different direction, his hide partially forms to cover some of his face, blocking all of the incoming bullets. It's unclear to me what the exact kind of gun the guy is firing here, but these are the speeds at which bullets from other assault rifles can travel at, and if we take the average of these weapons, using 850 for the G36, we get 825 meters per second, which is more than double the speed of sound, with that being 686 meters per second, which means at the lowest Tevin can react to those levels of speed, which is a pretty big contrast to his season 1 self, who took a while to actually form his hide against San Raz. This episode also highlights how Tevin is like a tank, as stated by one of the pirates, which is a sentiment Tevin himself has mentioned in episode 17. And in this episode, like a tank, Tevin is able to withstand the forces in front of him while he steadily advances forward. I also quickly wanted to look at Tevin's morality, as he still seems to carry the sentiment of not desiring to kill his opponents, but just like against Ryu, he knows he has to, but sees himself as not to blame for their deaths, since they chose the wicked side. This is a very big contrast to Shay's character, who seems to not care about who dies in his path to finally ending Thanatos, with the exception being the people close to him. This probably means that Tevin will embody Leo's morality the most, while Shay will embody his power. Moving on to Lewis, he should actually have a better reaction than Tevin, as his Ash is able to block the bullet from a sniper rifle, using the same logic we applied to Tevin and taking the speeds at which bullets from other snipers travel at, and taking the average of them while using 910 for the Shay tac, we get 899.6 meters per second, which we can round up to 900 meters per second, which is 129 less than 3 times the speed of sound, which of course is 1029 meters per second. Moving on to Lewis's Ash, we already knew he had a large amount of it, but this episode shows the actual distance and amount he can control regarding it, as he is seen controlling many Ash tendrils away from his body. For the most part, Lewis has been shown to change the Ash's form, but still keep it closer to his body, but this starts to show more of the multitasking capabilities strong range control users may have, as it should take a lot of focus to control all the tendrils simultaneously, and doing so in the heat of battle is even more impressive. One thing I just thought of is that the Ash may have a faster speed of movement. As I mentioned before, we see Lewis protect himself from the sniper round that was fired at him. We know the Ash itself moved after the bullet was fired, as the panel prior doesn't show the Ash or the bullet, which should imply the Ash only moved after the bullet was in a certain proximity to Lewis, and it moving after the bullet should imply it can move faster than the bullet itself was moving to some degree. Lewis also tells Brandon that it will be quicker for him to fly, and since he's doing so with his Ash, with it he may be able to move at 3 times the speed of sound. One thing to note about Lewis and his use of Ash of the Fathers is that his eyes no longer change to black when he uses it. This was something that occurred in season 1, but wasn't really shown in season 2, as every time Lewis used his talent, he had his helmet on. I'm wondering if this is a form of talent development, as better use of the talent leads to a change, or if this is a simple redesigning of how the talent looks when it's used. As before, based on his visuals, you could akin it to a kinesis type. The last thing I want to look at is Lewis's protective nature. Now in this episode, Lewis shows great concern for Azam and Yukiko. Now we don't know if the Cubs pass with each other, but Lewis is the oldest and has been pretty consistent that he looks after the youngest member of the Cubs, with that being Azam and Yukiko. Even in a recent picture Brent put on his Instagram of all the Cubs' kids, Lewis is seen looking at Azam, further showing that as the eldest brother, he feels it's on him to look after the youngest, and the sentiment is why he feels the need to ensure his younger siblings are safe. I could see this causing a form of conflict though, as what if Azam interprets Lewis's need to make sure they are safe as him not feeling Azam is strong enough to keep him and Yukiko safe? Azam could feel Lewis is undermining and underestimating his capabilities, as he did work under the Fourth Lord Abijah and has clearly grown as a result. Next, let's look at Yukiko. Now, she doesn't show as much in comparison to the others, but she does give us an insight into her psyche. First, we can see she is actively deducing and figuring things out herself, as she guesses the core the giant has is what allows him to regenerate, and likens the core to a heart and soul. Yukiko then goes on to thank the giant, as the first man she will kill will only be a dream. We have to keep in mind this is her first serious fight, and the first time she would be attempting to end something's life. And unlike the other members of her pack, her first kill will come from an artificial life, so she won't have to feel remorse the way Tevin did against Ryu, as the life she is ending was never real to begin with. This fight is almost like a final test for Yukiko, similar to the one Sabito had, as they are both being tried to the extreme in a life and death situation. In terms of skill, Yukiko mentions in episode 123 that the giant is quick for its size, and in that same episode she attempts twice to slow its movements. In this episode she shows that same attack style, as she traps the giant's foot and lands a dual slash on it. She then takes it further by trapping both of his feet and more ice, keeping him in place, before then attempting another attack. This shows that while Yukiko lacks raw power and experience, her intelligence is allowing her to use what she has at her disposal in an effective way. Now, in regards to Azam, this episode really starts to show what Azam is capable of in my opinion, and Ephialtes sort of confirms a prior thought I mentioned in a past video. In my 119 review, I proposed the idea that since Azam may have the best haste type talent in the series, the increase in speed doesn't just apply to his body, but to his thoughts as well. And in this episode, Ephialtes directly says Azam thinks as fast as he moves, confirming my prior thought. Azam also performs a move in this episode that gives him the visual of a bolt of lightning. This was initially something I wasn't going to mention, but it kind of ties into the Kidding talent. Now, the Kidding in myth is said to have the power to walk on water and clouds. This is actually something Azam has done in the first season. Lightning is also something that can travel through water and clouds, and this lightning-like visual is something Azam tends to express when he uses his talent. This means the Kidding talent embodies some of the myth by allowing the user to travel on surfaces by giving them a lightning-like visual that increases the user's speed. Azam's nickname of Mountain Striker may add to his lightning-like appearance, as mountains are more susceptible to lightning strikes due to them being closer to the negative charges in the thunderstorms. And just so I don't forget to mention it, like I said, this episode shows what Azam is capable of, as he makes an effective plan to deal with all three of his opponents. And lastly, let's look at Ephialtes. I think the most interesting thing is what he says about his own chi. He says his chi is everywhere, and implies it has the effect of making people fall asleep. This seems like a very rare thing to happen for chi itself to have its own characteristics. No other character so far has expressed or shown to have something like this. This makes me wonder if you can train your chi to be like this, or if it's a highly rare phenomenon. The concept itself reminds me of Kashimo from Jujutsu Kaisen, where his cursed energy itself had the properties of an electric current, so he was able to fight with his raw cursed energy and not his technique. Whether this is something you can do to your chi over time, or if it's an effect that you were born with, doesn't matter as much, as in either case, the idea of being able to conceal your talent and fight with just the effects of your chi is insane, as figuring out how someone's talent works can be the key to victory. But if the entire time you are fighting someone, they have only been using their chi's effects, when they actually unveil their talent, it could throw you off guard in such a way that it leads to your downfall. Outside of that, I'm also wondering how Ephialtes' chi is everywhere, and how you could resist the effects of his chi. From what it looks like so far, having enough chi or strong enough chi can subvert the sleeping effect, as Yukiko and Azam have strong talents that should give them a sort of strong chi, and neither has expressed any sort of drowsiness. One last thing that's interesting to take note about Ephialtes is that one of his creations express having emotion, and that would be the big one who cries after he kills his own riders, which is interesting as up until this point none of them have expressed a form of emotion. No fear, no remorse, no joy, but this one expresses sadness, which means the nightmares he creates have the potential to express emotion, whether that be through the active means of giving them even more sentience upon their creation, or by accidental circumstance like in this episode. Moving on to the nightmare he creates at the end of the episode known as Azam's Bane, it should be pretty clear that this creature is meant to deal with haste type users, given the fact Ephialtes says haste type users are one of his weaknesses, and also considering the creature's more slim design, it should be a lot faster than the more bulky creature Azam just defeated, meaning it's more than likely able to keep up with Azam's speed, though I do wonder what other attributes this creature will have that make him more difficult to deal with. I'm glad this episode showed off some of what Lewis and Tevin were doing, since we haven't seen them since episode 118. Though I do wish we got a little more from the Tevin and Lewis section, and that we actually saw them as a duo more, since Lewis will be leaving to check on Azam and Yukiko. So I'm wondering if Lewis will help Azam and go back to where Tevin is, so we can see more of those two together. Their section also adds to that brotherly relationship the Cubs have, which is one of the best things about the series, as they are in an essence like brothers, since they were more than likely raised together by Leo. In regards to Lewis specifically, since he's heading back to Trini, will we see him interact with the little girl that some of us theorize is a hemlock? If he does, I think it would be a cool way to show off his clan leader title, as maybe she recognizes him and maybe knows of how he fought Rokash and potentially admires to be like him, or simply wants to interact with him because he is the clan head. This episode also showcases Azam really well, as we get to see more of how he uses his weapon and the sort of techniques that come about having a weapon like that, which I'm pretty sure is something I mentioned I wanted to see in my discussion video regarding their new designs. He also gets 2 clean poses, which even though I'm not an Azam fan, I can't deny the coolness of them and what it starts to show off in terms of his skills. And lastly, for the comment of the week, I would like to put a spotlight on Trag Summer, as they note the tone shift of the chapter and how this life has affected not just Tevin, but all the Cubs. This comment, in my opinion, starts to point out that the Cubs aren't anything like the Season 2 versions of themselves and are far from the Season 1 versions, as they are experiencing a war, and war times change how people feel, act, and express themselves. They are also fighting in the war as opposed to just knowing about the conflict, which brings about an entirely different change in demeanor. But anyway, that's the video, guys. Let me know what your favorite part of the chapter was in the comments below, as well as how you feel about the things I mentioned in the highlight section. Don't forget to read the actual episode for yourself, and be sure to like it as well. And I will see y'all in the next one.